What is up, fight fans? So today we're going to do something fun and different. I put together all of the popular boxers that you may know, that a casual fan may know, that fans that aren't really into the sport may know. And because there's this disconnection between popularity and who's actually really good, a lot of new fans trying to get into boxing may want to know who's actually good in terms of skill. Well, I put together a tier list and we're going to go through one by one with all of the popular boxers. Without any further ado, let's jump right into it. Okay, now here we have all of the popular boxers. Now, I did this based off of Instagram follows, right? So I thought to myself, Twitter doesn't really give us a good gauge because a lot of boxing fans are on Twitter, but more casuals tend to be on Instagram. So I decided, hey, if they have more than 2 million followers on Instagram, they'll get put here. Also, of course, if they're iconic figures, they'll get put here as well. So we're gonna run through the gamut, talk about who these people are real quick, just give them a quick name, and hopefully you know who these people are because they have they have millions of followers on Instagram. So hopefully this is a popularity list of boxers. All right, let's go through them real quick. First one, Muhammad Ali. A lot of people know him. Second, Anthony Joshua. Canelo Alvarez, Devin Haney, Drago from Rocky, Floyd Mayweather, Tyson Fury, Gennady Golovkin, Javonta Tank Davis, Jake Paul, Lomachenko, Manny Pacquiao, Mike Tyson, Rocky from Rocky Marciano, Roy Jones Jr., Ryan Garcia, Tommy Fury, and Deontay Wilder. Now, as I mentioned, these are fighters that have over 2 million followers on Instagram. Now, I didn't find everybody, so there may be somebody that I'm missing, but I think generally speaking, these are the popular people that most people know outside of the sport. And I had to do it with that kind of, you know, the Instagram stuff because it's hard for me to exactly know what an outsider thinks, or what an outsider knows, or who they know and who they don't. For example, me, I would have put somebody like Errol Spence Jr. and Terrence Crawford and Inoue in here, Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez, but you guys probably don't know them on a broader scale, on a more casual fan scale. So we're gonna go ahead and start putting these guys on here based on skill. Now, remember, boxing is highly polarizing and it's incredibly, massively, magnificently subjective to the point of nausea. So I might not have the same list you have. I may think things that are, I may appreciate things that are things that you may not appreciate, but it doesn't matter because it's all opinionated anyways, right? So don't let this get to, don't let this get to your heart. Don't let this crush you. This does not mean that the person you love is horrible. It just means that this is how I analyze them and how I see them in terms of skill. All right, we're gonna go with Muhammad Ali first. And I'm gonna put Muhammad Ali in the top in most skilled. And the reason I'm putting him there, and yes, he's self-proclaimed the greatest. However, he is really good, most skilled. Why? Because Muhammad Ali was an Olympic gold medalist. Muhammad Ali beat Sonny Liston, which was thought to be impossible when he was essentially a child in the eyes of boxing back in that time. I mean, he beat Sonny Liston twice. So he proved that it wasn't a fluke. He beat him twice, and then Sonny Liston went on to knock out a bunch of people, like 15 people more after Muhammad Ali. So Sonny Liston literally was destroying everybody, met Muhammad Ali, lost twice, and then just destroyed everybody after that. So Muhammad Ali is a beast. He also beat almost all of the top fighters. That includes George Foreman, Joe Frazier, lost to Joe Frazier, but got the rematch and beat him twice. So in the rubber match, he beat him as well in the Thriller in Manila. And he avenged every loss except his final loss And it was because he was just way too old. You could already see that even the early Parkinson's was starting to kick in. He didn't have that look in his eyes like he knew what was going on. So he was a very old man, but even being somewhat old, he avenged his losses to other fighters. So Muhammad Ali is definitely one of the most skilled. Now, keep in mind, this tier list is gonna have people that could be most skilled and pretty up there and all that stuff. All right, so we're gonna go with Anthony Joshua next. Now, Anthony Joshua, I'm going to put him at skilled. Anthony Joshua, he went to the Olympics. He medaled at the Olympics, obviously. That's a big deal. Anthony Joshua beat people like Vladimir Klitschko. He beat people like Chisora. But you have to also keep in mind that when he beat someone like Klitschko, he was kind of already going out the door. And he lost to people like... what's his name? Anthony Ruiz. Andy Ruiz. He lost to people like Andy Ruiz. So he also was outboxed by Usyk. I would say that he is a very exciting fighter, but he is not in the tier list of pretty skilled or most skilled. Definitely very exciting, definitely very popular, and incredibly popular for the UK community. But he doesn't have enough in his tool belt to put him at pretty skilled or most skilled. So I'm going to leave him right there. Canelo Alvarez, I'm going to move to pretty skilled. I do believe Canelo Alvarez is one of those super skilled guys that can kind of beat the majority of people out there. But when put up against somebody who has skill, he tends to struggle a lot. He went up against Bivol, struggled. Went up against Erislandy Lara, struggled. Went up against, in the infamous fight with Floyd Mayweather, struggled heavily. Barely was able to touch Floyd Mayweather. Canelo has amazing head movement and explosive power and very good deceptive movements that allow him to set up things like powerful liver shots, powerful body shots, but he lacks heavily in his ability to continue to adapt, to push through, especially when someone is skilled, and his feet movement, his quick feet. He just doesn't have those, and it puts him at pretty skilled. Had he had some quick feet and some more, like a deeper tool set to allow him to overcome even someone who's trying to outbox him, I would have put him at most skilled. But right now, because of his accomplishments, he's definitely pretty skilled. Now we have Devin Haney. Now I put Devin Haney at pretty skilled as well. I think Devin Haney is a very intelligent fighter, very, very good fighter, but hasn't had the ability to prove himself on the biggest stage yet. Did he beat Kambosos? Yes, he did beat Kambosos, but all Kambosos' claim to fame so far is simply beating Teofimo Lopez for all the belts that Teofimo Lopez went and collected or had won and then took the remaining 3 from Lomachenko. So I would put Devin Haney here, but he is an incredibly skilled fighter. I mean, his jab is amazing. His setups are amazing, and his ability to understand his opponents and read his opponents is really, really good. He's also not super powerful in his punches, but he makes up for that in his intelligence, in his boxing IQ. So I will have Devin Haney on pretty skilled level. Now, Drago, I'm going to put in not a real person. For a lot of people, you don't know for sure. Some people don't know for sure who Drago is. Some people actually think to themselves, hey, is Drago a real person? He is not a real person. Drago is from the movie Rocky, and I don't know which one. I think maybe Rocky 2 or Rocky 3. Forgive me if I'm wrong. And this is not a knock on a lot of casuals. Believe it or not, there are some people that actually remember Drago as a real fighter. He is not. He is not a real fighter. So we're going to put him in not a real person tier. Next, we have Floyd Mayweather Jr. Floyd Mayweather Jr. is going to go all the way up to most skilled. Floyd Mayweather Jr. ended his career at 50-0. Of course, we don't want to talk about number 50 because number 50 was against not a real, boxer or a brand new boxer in Conor McGregor. So even if we said 49-0, it still ties for the best record to retire, for the best undefeated record before retiring, right? So Floyd Mayweather, his incredible ability was never so much all of his boxing IQ and all of his skills, his base level skills. What he had that was better than most people was, of course, his defense, which was high level, his counterpunching, but his ability to adapt. That's what made him deadly, because even if all else failed, he always had that additional ability to adapt if people were beating him to the punch or outsmarting him for a small period of time. He was always able to figure it out, which is why he ended his career without defeat. Now, this is argued to the moon. He lost to Jose Luis Castillo, or he lost to Maidana, or he lost to Oscar De La Hoya. But every boxer has had questionable, decisions given to them. Every boxer has had those kind of moments. At the end of the day, for him to fight at the highest level, for him to fight somebody like Miguel Cotto at the 154-pound division and still win in an exciting fight where he actually, for that fight, literally gave the fans what they were looking for, and even to beat someone as elite and spectacular as Manny Pacquiao in a much anticipated fight that I know for a lot of people was a dud. For me, I enjoyed it, but I enjoy skilled boxers. I would have to put him at most skilled. Also, he still holds the record for beating the most world champions in a row too, which is absolutely amazing, because a lot of people, even from the past, even from the 50s, would have hundreds and hundreds of fights, but they didn't actually fight hundreds and hundreds of world champions. They fought less than 15 world champions, which shows how difficult of a task it is for what Floyd Mayweather did. Granted, there were less world titles back then, but still, Floyd Mayweather only really fought world champions at a certain point in his career and still ended without a defeat. So we're going to have Floyd Mayweather at most skilled. Then we have Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury, I'm going to put at pretty skilled. He's almost there. He's almost at most skilled, but it's tough to give most skilled to a heavyweight boxer, because even if you have a decent amount of skills, you are going to completely drown the competition. You're going to have enough to be able to outsmart and outbox and outjab the majority of people. You're going to have enough, because it doesn't take much in the heavyweight division, because the heavyweight division is kind of a mixed bag of people with a lot of power, of people with a lot of aggression, but not people with a lot of skill. So Tyson Fury is very skillful, high IQ, really good fighter, one of the best heavyweights out there, and one of the best heavyweights of all time. But he still, like, he has, it's hard to gauge how skillful he is, because his level of competition has not been crazy. He's fought Deontay Wilder, which is great. He fought Vladimir Klitschko when Vladimir Klitschko was still decent, and held the WBC title. So he has those two kind of fights under his belt. But other than those two fights, he doesn't really have much to put that proclamation that he's most skilled. All right, so we're gonna have Tyson Fury there at pretty skilled. Now we have Gennady Golovkin. I'm gonna put Gennady Golovkin at skilled. Gennady Golovkin is good. I do not think he is better though than someone like Canelo Alvarez. What Gennady Golovkin does have is his ability to set up his power punches. He doesn't just throw power punches and throw caution to the wind. He knows he has a lot of power, but he does it in an intelligent way. He builds up to it for the majority of the time, because he knows that this is the safest way to get that knockout. He's an intelligent fighter. He is, and especially in his heyday, he was really powerful, but he didn't really beat many great fighters. He beat some good fighters, but not many great fighters. He definitely had a good fight with Danny Jacobs. He had a really good fight in the first fight with Canelo Alvarez, but I don't think any of that stuff is enough to move him into pretty skilled. And just looking at his skills alone, he gets tagged a lot. He just has a good chin and an ability to set up his power punch later down the line. So we're going to put Gennady Golovkin at skilled. Now we have Javonta Tank Davis. I'm going to put Javonta Tank Davis at skilled. And the reason we want to put Javonta Tank Davis at skilled is that he just hasn't given us anything to show us that he's at a higher level just yet. He gets tagged a lot. He definitely gets tagged a lot. And even if you compare him to somebody like Terrence Crawford gets tagged a lot. Javonta Tank Davis gets tagged a lot. But Javonta Tank Davis gets tagged a lot and tries to set up one powerful punch, while Terrence Crawford gets tagged a lot, but tries to set up a beatdown, which is is much different. That takes a lot of forming and construction to put that together, while making sure you just get that one big shot just takes kind of reading your opponent and creating that one moment or multiple moments of timing the one shot, right? So it's not as difficult as creating a system where you essentially start beating somebody down. So even if you wanted to compare Terrence and Javonta Tank Davis as fighters that can get hit, it's not the same if you actually look at it. If you look at it through a microscope, the thing with Javonta Tank Davis is he relies so much on his power, and he may have more skill than he's actually putting on, but we can't see it. We cannot see it because Javonta Tank Davis simply doesn't show it to us. He allows for his opponents to get off on him, and he knows that he will eventually get the knockout. But what happens if he doesn't? Then you get questionable, fights like the fight with what was his name, Isaac Cruz. So he has a lot of skills. He has good ring IQ. He has good head movement and everything like that. And he's slick and he's super fast too with his punches. But I'm going to have to put him at skilled because he lacks a lot of the other stuff that I mentioned. Plus, he hasn't really tested himself with a high level 135 pounder. He hasn't fought Teofimo Lopez. He hasn't fought a Loma Chanko. He hasn't fought a Devin Haney. He hasn't fought a Ryan Garcia. So if you don't fight those guys and you're just fighting adjacent to those guys, not even caring, just working for the regular belt, not even the main belts, it already puts red flags for me, and to me it doesn't put him in pretty skilled or even most skilled. It puts him at skilled. Now we have Jake Paul. Jake Paul will easily fall into not very skilled. Now keep in mind, Jake Paul is brand new to the sport. He kind of reminds me of Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder entered the sport very, very old in the frame of what you would need to, or what age you would need to be to start the sport. Deontay Wilder started the sport in his 20s, and Jake Paul started the sport in his 20s. Can Jake Paul eventually, maybe with his power, get to a place where he's being ranked? It is possible, but we don't know just yet. Deontay Wilder was able to do that entering the sport in his 20s, had a lot of power in his right hand, so he was able to capture a bronze medal in the Olympics and then defeat people like Bermane Stiverne and King Kong, beating all of these people, King Kong Ortiz, beating all of these people because he had that powerful right hand. Can Jake Paul do something to that in that same magnitude? It's very difficult. Deontay Wilder seems to be a once in a lifetime kind of experience, but we'll have to wait and see. But right now, he is learning, he is new, he is raw, but he is not very skilled. And for anyone to say that he is, you will be lying to yourself. Now, we have Loma Chanko. We're gonna move Lomachenko to pretty skilled. Now, Lomachenko's almost at most skilled because he beat Gary Russell Jr. in his third fight for a world title. So he was a world champion in 3 fights. But I do not agree with the fact that he even got a world title in that third fight, considering that he lost his first fight, his debut fight, where he lost it. So to me, it's just a very weird thing where politics kind of catapulted him. But we cannot forget that Lomachenko, if you didn't know, has a super decorated amateur career with 2 gold medals at the Olympics and like 390 something wins with like 1 loss. He is a beast, a technical beast and a technical master. But to get that most skilled, you also have to have that body of work, that resume represent that. He's fought some good guys, like I mentioned, Gary Russell Jr. and Teofimo Lopez, but he's lost to Orlando Salido, who has lost to a lot of people. Orlando Salido is essentially a journeyman, and he also lost to Teofimo Lopez. And Teofimo Lopez just lost to Kambosos. So he's there, he's teetering there, and he's always challenging himself. So I absolutely love that. But he's just shy of being most skilled. Now we have Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao. Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao is going to go all the way up to most skilled. Manny Pacquiao's fighting style has never been replicated, and he fights in a style that is his own. The way he throws his punches without turning, and how comfortable he is with doing that and creating angles, allowed him to circumvent most high guards. Most people couldn't figure out how to deal with Manny Pacquiao, which is what allowed this small guy to move 8 divisions in boxing, and the only person in combat history to win titles in 8 divisions, which is absolutely phenomenal and may never be replicated ever again, because you have to literally almost go across the gamut, like throughout the entire, like you have to do more than half of all of the divisions to be able to pull off what Manny Pacquiao was able to pull off. So kudos to him. A lot of people would say, well, he should probably be in pretty skilled because he lost fights and stuff. Yeah, but he beat the likes of somebody like an Antonio Margarito. He beat the likes of a Sugar Shane Mosley. He beat the likes of a Ricky Hatton when Ricky Hatton was at his height and only had lost to Floyd Mayweather. He beat Timothy Bradley when Timothy Bradley was undefeated. He's given wars to Juan Manuel Marquez, one of the great counter punchers that came out of Mexico. He beat Marco Antonio Barrera and Eric Morales in the rematch. He has beaten high caliber Hall of Fame fighters, so you can't knock him down simply for his loss to Floyd Mayweather, and you can't say he's not the most skilled simply because he lost to Floyd Mayweather, because his body of work speaks for himself, and his ability to throw so many punches, sometimes averaging over 1,000 punches a fight, is just a testament to his fitness and cardio. Manny Pacquiao 100% deserves to be in most skilled. Mike Tyson. We're going to go ahead and put Mike Tyson in skilled. I know a lot of people like Mike Tyson, and I know a lot of people love Mike Tyson, and Mike Tyson had a lot of power, but one thing that Mike Tyson definitely was lacking was discipline. After a certain point in his career, he started going on cruise control, so he never actually unlocked his potential. He lost to people like Evander Holyfield. He lost to Buster Douglas, which was his first loss, where he didn't even train for the fights because of his lack of discipline. I have to put Mike Tyson in skilled and not even pretty skilled. But is he an exciting fighter? Yes. Did he have the peekaboo style, which was entertaining to watch? Yes. Was he a small heavyweight that was huge built and very polarizing to see and had a polarizing personality and everything like that? Absolutely 100% yes. But this is not about who's the most famous. This is about who's the most skilled. When it counts, when it mattered, he didn't step up to the plate, especially later down the line in his career. And it ended up making him just display skill, but not be that top tier type of fighter that he could have been. Remember, I'm not saying that he is not popular, because he is. What I'm saying is that he just wasn't able to tap into that deep skill level that would have put him into pretty skilled or most skilled. Now we're going to go on to Rocky Balboa. Rocky Balboa goes in not a real person. Now, I know it feels weird that I'm even talking about this, but to some people, to distant people, like there's some people that aren't sure. Is he a real? There's people that don't know. He's not. He's from the Rocky movies, and so his popularity is up there. People love Rocky Balboa, so we're gonna go ahead and put him here and not a real person. Now we're gonna talk about Rocky Marciano, who actually inspired he inspired the iconography of Rocky Balboa. He was the iconography inspiration for Rocky Balboa, and he also was 49-0 like Floyd Mayweather. But even with that, we gotta put Rocky Marciano at skilled. Rocky Marciano, he just lacked all all of the technical tools that you need to be a master ring general, but he had grit and power. And he was able to beat somebody. He was able to beat people like Joe Louis. Wilcott. He was definitely beating these good fighters, and he has a decent resume. But definitely, I would want it to see him fight a little bit more. Unfortunately, he died in a tragic plane crash. But he was retired, and it was kind of testing the waters to see if he was going to come back to keep fighting. Normally, during his time, a lot of people clock in way more fights than just 49 fights. He still remained undefeated though, but many of those fights he was losing, and because he had that grit and power, he came out with the knockout. And we're judging people here not based on if they won or if they lost, we're judging them on skill alone. He is an incredibly polarizing figure and an incredibly inspirational figure, but at the end of the day, Rocky Marciano didn't have that skill, that super skill level to put him up into pretty skilled or most skilled. All right, and now we're going to go to Roy Jones Jr. I'm going to put Roy Jones Jr. at, and this is probably going to bother some people and it's going to be controversial, but remember, it is subjective. He's going to go at pretty skilled. I have him at pretty skilled because he was great. He was amazing for his time, and he did incredible things. Like, he never had a promoter, or he never had a manager. He did everything on his own and was able to become a popular figure simply by being stylish, by showing his quick hands and his quick head movement. But he didn't really fight super top tier fighters, and that's the truth. He never really fought top tier fighters. The only ones he really came into contact with was James Toney. In my opinion, James Toney was his only real, really good top tier fighter that he fought throughout his entire kind of campaign when he was coming up and when he was #1 pound for pound fighter in the world. But, and this is a big but, when he hit that wall of Antonio Tarver, it was all over. Antonio Tarver kind of exposed Roy Jones Jr., knocked him out, and they went for the rematch, and he knocked him out again. So it was pretty much done after that. He then went on to fight Glenn Johnson and got knocked out. So those things weigh on his ability to keep that going. It's kind of like Hasim, Prince Nassim Hamed. He was doing all his flashy stuff and he looked amazing against lower quality fighters. But once he went in the ring with Marco Antonio Barrera, he got completely smoked. And that was his last fight because he was exposed. Everything he was doing was already exposed, and I think that is the case for Roy Jones Jr. Does it change the fact that he was one of the most entertaining fighters in the world? No. Does it change the fact that he had one of the fastest hands in the world? No. Does it change the fact that he was robbed from a gold medal at the Olympics and he should have won that gold medal? No. But when we're being honest with each other, pretty skilled is where, he would fall. Let's not say honest with each other. Subjectively, me thinking about the whole piece, all the pieces to the puzzle, I would put Roy Jones Jr. at pretty skilled. All right, now we got Ryan Garcia. We're going to put Ryan Garcia at skilled. Ryan Garcia is kind of right there on that tier with Javonta Tank Davis, which is what would make that fight an amazing fight. I think Ryan Garcia is aggressively underrated. I think a lot of people think that he is not good simply because of some misconception of him being super popular on social media. Here's the thing, guys. it's just lightning in a bottle. He just happened to be popular on social media, and because he was popular on social media, and he has like this look, like, oh, he like a movie star look, almost like the second coming of Oscar De La Hoya. Because of this, you know, he gets a bad rap, right? And then of course he had his situations where he was gonna fight Javonta Tank Davis, and then he got offered a Manny Pacquiao exhibition, and he pulled from the negotiations with Davis, and then Manny Pacquiao decided not to go for that fight, so he was kind of left on an island. He had to figure that out. It caused a massive wave of depression where he pulled out of fights with Javier Fortuna and fights with Jojo Diaz with a broken hand. So it took a lot out of him, and all of that kind of created a narrative of him being kind of scared and not wanting to fight the best or whatever. But he came back and he has fought Javier Fortuna, somebody the people said he was scared to fight, and now he has fought him, and people are saying, well, he's washed up anyway. So sometimes it's damn if you do, damn if you don't. It doesn't really matter what you do. But my point is that he is more skilled than people give him credit for. Lightning fast hands, probably the fastest hands in boxing today, and could be argued one of the fastest hands of all time. Really smart setups, really smart conditioning that he does with his opponents. Because he's so fast, he knows that that's a dark cloud that's always looming on top of his opponent's heads. So he uses that psychology to get punches to even land, like powerful punches to land to the body. He's a really smart fighter, and I would love to see a matchup between him and Javonta Tank Davis. I'm hoping that that's the next fight that he gets, because that would be awesome. I'm not holding my breath, but it would be an awesome fight, because we would get to see him, a guy who fights tall, against a really short guy that also can have a very similar hand speed than him and has power as well. Both of them would be an explosive fight, in my opinion. All right, so now let's move on to Tommy Fury. Tommy Fury falls in not very skilled. Oh, and one more thing about Ryan Garcia that I was going to mention in terms of why he's skilled. He also has a really good decorated amateur career. He beat the likes of Devin Haney 3 times out of 6. So it's 3-3 in amateur fights with Devin Haney, proving that he can hang with the top fighters. And he also has an incredible, a really powerful amateur record, as well as being nationally ranked. So don't be fooled by the fact that he's just really popular on social media before he had the big fights. He did it backwards, but he's still a skillful fighter. Now, Tommy Fury is, in my opinion, not very skilled. He has barely any amateur fights, and he performs poorly almost every time out with very low competition. I actually truly believe that it will be a somewhat 50-50 fight if he was to fight Jake Paul. Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury is probably the best business move for Jake Paul in terms of proving that he can fight an actual boxer, because this is a very small step up for Jake Paul, because Tommy Fury honestly is not that good. He's a good, like he's popular and everything like that, but he's not actually that good when it comes to boxing and the skills that, that deep skill tool set. He doesn't have it. He's very one-dimensional, and he lacks experience. He just like Jake Paul. All right, and Deontay Wilder, we're gonna put him at not very skilled. Deontay Wilder is notorious for doing stuff like Euro stepping in a boxing ring, something that doesn't give you any advantage whatsoever. It's actually very dangerous to have both your feet out off the ground at any point in boxing. You should make sure to at least have one foot touching the ground, and you're always trying to get your foot to touch the ground as quickly as possible, because being in midair can literally, somebody hits you while you're in midair and you're gonna fall right to the floor. It's gonna change the trajectory of your movement. You're gonna fall right to the floor. So it's not even a smart thing to do, but he would do things like that because why? He had an insane right hand. So powerful that this man started boxing super late and was still able to win the bronze medal in the Olympics and win world titles, the WBC title. He beat Bermane Stiverne for a WBC title when no one thought it was possible. I remember at the beginning of his career, everybody was moving him really slowly because they didn't know what he could really do when he went up against the big boys, but he proved himself. He proved himself that he could stand on top of that mountain, even though he didn't have the skills like everybody else. He had that power and the heart to stay in the fight, knowing that he could always get that one punch KO, as he basically knocked everybody he ever fought out except Tyson Fury, but he almost did. He almost did in the first fight, and even the third fight, it was a battle with his power. He's always been a really small heavyweight as compared to other heavyweights that usually would outweigh him by 20 to 30 pounds, or was almost 40 pounds, but he still could knock them out. That's how powerful Deontay Wilder is, and if you were to judge his power, it will be up there with one of the most powerful punches in boxing history. All right, so this is my tier list. We got the most skilled being Muhammad Ali, Floyd Mayweather Jr., Manny Pacquiao. Pretty skilled, we got Canelo Alvarez, Devin Haney, Tyson Fury, Lomachenko, Roy Jones Jr. Skilled, we have Anthony Joshua, Gennady Golovkin, Javonta Tank Davis, Mike Tyson, Rocky Marciano, Ryan Garcia, and not very skilled, we have Jake Paul, Tommy Fury, and Deontay Wilder. Of all the popular people that everybody knows, hopefully this helps you kind of understand, kind of gauge who's who, who's good, who's not. Is it because he's popular that I think he's good? Is it because he's not popular that I think he's not good? So now you get an idea. Granted, it's a subjective list. Your list might not be the same, but let me know down in the comment section below. Do you agree with this list? Is this list pretty close to what you would do if you were to do a tier list with all these people, with all the popular people in boxing today? All right, guys, until the next one, this is Edward from Boxing Fanatico. Hope you enjoyed it. Peace out.